Someone like you could never figure that out, the millionaire CEO said. But the cleaner taught him a lesson that humiliated the powerful man and changed everything. The Monday morning in Midtown Manhattan started overcast, with that heavy feeling that weighs on your shoulders before the day even begins. Eleanor Ellie Stone adjusted her freshly pressed navy blue uniform for the 5th time, smoothing out stubborn creases with her calloused hands. At 52, thin enough that the uniform seemed slightly too large, her dark skin carried the marks of decades spent working under the sun before she was pushed into the indoor spaces of invisibility. She paused before the mirrored gates of Nexus Global Logistics. The reflection in the glass showed a small woman against the enormity of steel, glass, and marble. The 20-story tower seemed to suck the light from the gray sky, mirroring heavy clouds that threatened to break at any moment. Ellie clutched her worn handbag, feeling the familiar knot in her stomach, the same knot that had accompanied her since she had to swallow her pride and accept cleaning jobs just to survive. "It's just a janitorial job, Mom," her daughter Jamie had said the night before, gently running a comb through her mother's graying hair. "It's going to be fine. Nobody needs to know anything. Know anything." The words echoed in Ellie's head as she crossed the gates for the first time. Nobody needed to know that this woman in a humble uniform had once commanded development teams, written complex code that kept entire systems running, and won innovation awards at brilliant startups. Nobody needed to know that the weight on her shoulders wasn't just physical exhaustion, but the shame of having been shredded by the very system she had helped build. The main lobby took her breath away. Italian travertine marble covered the floor in massive slabs that reflected like a black mirror. Tiered crystal chandeliers hung from the triple-height ceiling. An artificial fountain ran in the center, water cascading gently over imported stones. Ellie watched well-dressed employees cross the space without even glancing at the architectural wonder to them. It was just the daily commute to their offices with privileged views. "You must be the new cleaner." The voice came from above, literally. Ellie looked up and saw a woman in an impeccable pantsuit descending the curved staircase. She must have been 60, gray hair pulled back in an elegant bun, discreet pearl earrings. Her eyes, however, held a different expression from the rest of her formal face. There was something kind there. "Yes, ma'am. Eleanor Stone," she replied, extending her hand. The woman shook it with surprising firmness. "Clarice, I'm Mr. Sterling's executive assistant. He requested all employees gather in the lobby in 5 minutes. Apparently, he wants to make a special presentation." The tone of the word special carried a bitter irony that Ellie couldn't decipher. Ms. Clarice pointed to a corner where people in various uniforms were already clustered: security guards, catering staff, other cleaners. Ellie headed there, feeling assessing glances upon her. In the next few minutes, the lobby filled up. System analysts in open-collared dress shirts, operations managers with leather portfolios, logistics coordinators checking tablets, directors in custom-tailored suits. Ellie quickly calculated. There must have been over 200 people there. They conversed among themselves, creating a buzz that echoed off the marble walls, until a sudden silence cut through the air. Richard V. Sterling appeared at the top of the staircase. The man was the personification of corporate power. Pale, angular features, penetrating blue eyes that swept the crowd with the proprietary air of someone examining goods. A charcoal Italian suit that must have cost more than Ellie would earn in 6 months. The gray at his temples was perfectly trimmed. His Swiss watch gleamed under the chandeliers, and his smile had that dangerous quality, the kind that never reaches the eyes. "Good morning, everyone," his voice boomed, amplified by the lobby's perfect acoustics. "I know it's unusual to summon the entire company like this, but today we have important news." Ellie felt her stomach churn. Something was wrong. Miss Clarice, positioned near the stairs, frowned slightly. "I want to introduce our newest employee," Sterling continued, and then his blue eyes fixed directly on Ellie. "Come up here to the front, please." The floor seemed to disappear beneath Ellie's feet. 200 pairs of eyes turned toward her. With shaky legs, she left the corner where she had taken refuge and walked down the human corridor that opened up. her worn shoes making a dull sound against the marble that the executive's high heels made resonate with authority. When she reached the base of the staircase, Sterling descended 3 steps and stopped, intentionally remaining above her, looking down. "This," he announced with a theatrical pause, "is our new cleaner. I want everyone to take a good look." Ellie felt the heat of humiliation rise up her neck, staining her ears. Some employees whispered. She noticed the director of IT, a man about 35 with a trimmed beard and designer glasses, cross his arms with a poorly disguised expression of amusement. "People like her," Sterling continued, his voice dripping with condescension that hurt more than a shout, "keep this place clean so that we, the real professionals, can work. I want everyone to understand the importance of hierarchy here. Each person in their appropriate place, executing the function for which they were designated by life." The silence that followed was the kind that hurts the ears. Ellie instinctively lowered her head, but something within her, perhaps the last remnant of pride that 5 years of fall hadn't completely destroyed, made her eyes stay open, observant. She mapped the environment with the attention of someone who has learned that invisibility can be a weapon when used correctly. She saw the expression of contained anger on Ms. Clarice's face. She noticed how 3 or 4 employees averted their gaze, clearly uncomfortable. She observed that the director of IT, identified by his badge as Andrew Porter, Director of Technology, was smiling openly, and she fixed every detail of Richard Sterling's face in her memory, because instinct and experience told her that this man would be important in her future in ways he could never imagine. "You may return to your duties." Sterling dismissed her with a wave of his hand, as if swatting an annoying fly. "The cleaning coordinator will explain your tasks." Ellie turned and walked back through the crowd, each step an eternity, each whisper a needle prick. But when she reached the side corridor leading to the staff changing rooms, she wasn't broken. She was observing. She was learning. And deep in her mind, calculations and analyses were already beginning to process. Because true software engineers never stop analyzing systems, even the rotten systems of corporate inequality. The first week at Nexus Global Logistics was a brutal immersion into the world Ellie thought she had left behind. Her duties were simple: cleaning the executive floors in the early mornings, between 3 and 7 a.m., when the senior staff were still asleep in their luxury condos. Emptying trash cans, mopping floors, polishing glass, organizing meeting rooms. But Ellie noticed things. On the second night, or was it early morning? While cleaning the 18th floor where the director's offices were located, she heard raised voices coming from the main conference room. It was 3 a.m. Who would be there at that hour? She approached silently, her cleaning cart abandoned a few feet behind. The door was ajar. $3.5 million a month, Richard. $3.5 million. The voice belonged to an older man with a distinct European accent. "The investors have lost patience. You have 6 months. 6 months to solve this black hole in the system, or we liquidate everything. The best specialists in the country are on the problem," was Sterling's voice. But for the first time, Ellie heard him without that veneer of arrogance. There was a tremor there, hidden fear. "It's a problem that's existed for 5 years, since before I took over as CEO. The inventory system is hemorrhaging money. Products physically appear in the warehouses but don't exist digitally. Deliveries are billed but never arrive. It's as if the software has a life of its own." 6 months. The other voice repeated, inflexible. "And if Andrew and that IT team making fortunes can't fix it, I suggest you start updating your resume." Footsteps approached the door. Ellie quickly backed away, returning to her cart and plunging into the task of wiping down a nearby desk, her back to them. 2 men walked past Sterling and a gray-haired gentleman in an impeccable suit who must have been the investor, without noticing the invisible cleaner. When the elevator swallowed them, Ellie stopped cleaning. Her heart was racing, but not from fear. From something else. Recognition. Inventory problem that existed for 5 years. System with erratic behavior. Physical data inconsistent with digital records. She knew these symptoms intimately. In the following days, Ellie moved through the floors with renewed attention. She overheard tense conversations between exhausted programmers working late. She read emails left open on screens that no one bothered to lock near, just a cleaner. She gathered pieces of a puzzle that went beyond simple technical failures. On the Thursday of that first week, while cleaning the main boardroom, she found documents forgotten on the table. Technical reports, system log analyses, failed debug attempts. She knew she shouldn't, that it was trespassing, that she could be fired. But her fingers were already photographing everything with the old cell phone that barely held a charge. That night, in her cramped walk-up apartment in East Tremont, Bronx, after Jamie fell asleep in the single room they shared, Ellie opened those photos on a cracked screen, and the reality hit her like a punch. Those error codes, that system architecture, those digital signatures buried in the code comments. She knew all of it. It was impossible, yet it was real. It started in the second month, on a particularly cold Tuesday morning. Ellie was following her usual route when she reached the 20th floor server room, the technological heart of Nexus Global. Theoretically, only the IT team had authorization to enter there. But, due to an irony that probably no one in the executive suite had realized, the cleaners also had access. After all, someone needed to clean the anti-static floor and dust the racks. The room was artificially cooled, kept at a constant 64 degrees Fahrenheit. Rows of servers blinked green and blue lights, creating a kind of technological constellation. The constant hum of the coolers and air conditioning was almost hypnotic. Ellie stopped at the entrance, just looking. 5 years. 5 years since she had professionally touched a keyboard. 5 years since her world had collapsed. She stepped inside. Her feet carried her to the main console, a workstation with 4 monitors. The screens displayed system monitoring dashboards, performance metrics, real-time logs, alerts flashing yellow. Many alerts. Someone from the IT team must have forgotten their session open. Ellie put down the cleaning cloth, looked behind her, verifying she was alone, and then her fingers touched the keyboard. It was like returning home after years of exile. She navigated through the log directories with the ease of someone who knows not just the language, but the soul of the systems. Her eyes scanned lines of code, identifying patterns with the speed that only 22 years of experience provides. And then she found it. Erratic timestamps in the inventory module. Database queries that returned null at specific moments. Synchronization failures between the backend and the database that occurred at intervals that were almost random. Almost, but not completely. Ellie opened a terminal and began typing. SQL commands to verify table integrity. Python scripts to analyze error patterns. In 40 minutes, she had mapped something the entire IT team with their 5-figure salaries hadn't managed in 5 years. The errors were not random. They followed an activation pattern based on specific dates, like a time bomb that exploded and rebuilt intermittently. More disturbing, the architecture of the codebase. It was old, she noticed immediately. Layers and layers of poorly done updates, patches applied over patches, incomplete refactors. But buried deep within that digital mess was the original structure. And that structure, Ellie knew intimately and painfully well, because she had helped create it. The sound of footsteps in the hallway woke her from the trance. Ellie quickly closed all windows, wiped the command history with automatic movements of someone who has done this 1,000 times, and returned to wielding her cleaning cloth just as the door opened. It was just a security guard making his rounds. "Everything clear here?" he asked, yawning. "Yes, sir. Just cleaning," Ellie answered with the submissive voice she had learned to use, lowering her eyes. When the man left, she looked at the small, crumpled notebook she carried in her uniform pocket, a seafoam green notebook that Jamie had given her for her last birthday. With trembling hands, she began to jot down everything she had discovered. Error codes, timestamp patterns, suspicions about the problem's origin. But above all, she wrote down 2 words that pulsed in her mind like a war drum. Logitech Innovations. The name of the startup where she had worked. The name of the company that Richard Sterling and his investors had bought 5 years ago for $2 million, promising jobs and partnerships. the name of the company that, in reality, had been completely dismantled, with all employees dismissed like trash, while only the technology was stolen and absorbed. Eleanor Stone had been the senior engineer at Logitech. She had co-written that logistics management system that was supposed to revolutionize the market. She had bled whole nights working to make those codes function perfectly. And now, corrupted and mutilated, that very system was destroying the company that had stolen it. The irony would be comical if it weren't tragic. The following days were a dangerous dance between duty and obsession. By day, Ellie maintained the perfect facade of the invisible cleaner. In the pre-dawn hours, in the furtive windows of time in the server room, she investigated deeper. And in the few hours of sleep at home, her used laptop, bought in 12 painful installments from her minimum wage salary, churned with analysis. It was Ms. Clarice who first noticed. In the third week of the second month, Ellie was cleaning the women's restroom on the 19th floor when the door opened. It was noon, lunchtime, when all the floors were practically empty. Ms. Clarice walked in, checked the empty stalls, and then fixed her brown eyes on Ellie. "You understand these things, don't you?" It wasn't a question. It was a whispered statement. Ellie froze with the cloth in her hand, disinfectant dripping onto the granite floor. "Excuse me, ma'am? I saw you yesterday, late at night, when I came back to retrieve documents I had forgotten." Ms. Clarice approached, but her expression wasn't accusatory. It was complicit. "I saw how you looked at the screens in the IT hallway. It's not how someone who is just cleaning looks. It's how someone who is reading, understanding." Ellie's heart leaped. Would she be fired? Exposed? "I didn't do anything wrong. I swear. I was just—" "I won't turn you in," Ms. Clarice interrupted gently. She looked at the door, verifying they were alone, and when she spoke again, there was an old pain in her voice. "I've worked for Richard Sterling for 12 years. 12 years watching that man destroy people as casually as changing a tie, firing loyal employees via email, humiliating those who can't defend themselves, stealing ideas and companies as if he were a medieval lord collecting taxes." She moved closer, and Ellie saw contained tears in those experienced eyes. "My son was a programmer," Clarice continued, her voice trembling. "He worked at a small startup, full of dreams, until Nexus Global bought the company. They promised opportunities. They lied. They fired everyone and kept only the software. My John fell into a depression. It took him 2 years to recover and find another job." Ellie felt the immediate connection. "Logitech Innovations?" she ventured. Clarice's eyes widened. You worked there?" "Senior engineer, Eleanor Stone." For the first time in 5 years, she said her professional title aloud. The word tasted of rust, of something precious left to decay in the rain. "I helped create the system that is destroying this company now." The silence that followed was heavy with mutual understanding. Two women from different backgrounds, united by the pain caused by the same corporate machine of cruelty. "Do you know how to fix it?" Clarice finally asked. "I'm learning. Every night, every fragment of information I can access. But I need more. I need to see the acquisition contracts, the old backups, the original documentation." Clarice nodded slowly, a new determination hardening her features. "I have access to the dead files. Every paper that passes through the executive suite eventually passes through me. I can acquire things discreetly." "Why would you do that?" Ellie had to ask. "You could lose your job." "Because I'm tired." The answer came simply, but loaded with years of compressed frustration. Tired of seeing good people stepped on. Tired of being a silent accomplice. And because, she smiled weakly. "My John always said the sweetest revenge is proving the oppressor was wrong. That's how the unlikely alliance was born. The engineer cleaner and the revolted executive assistant." In the following weeks, Clarice became Ellie's eyes and ears in the corridors of power. Flash drives with system backups, hidden in cleaning supply folders. Copies of financial reports, folded inside packages of paper towels. Old contracts, carefully photographed and transferred in quick meetings in empty restrooms. Ellie processed everything in her cramped walk-up. Jamie, now 26, worked as a call center operator and studied administration at night. She knew her mother was working on something important, but Ellie shielded her daughter from the details. She didn't want to raise hopes about something that was still uncertain, fragile. "Mom, you barely sleep," Jamie complained, seeing the glow of the laptop in the early hours. "You're going to get sick." "It's temporary, honey, just a little longer." But Ellie knew it wasn't temporary. It was obsession. It was the chance to prove, even if only to herself, that 5 years of humiliation hadn't erased who she really was. It was in the dead files, in documents Clarice had managed to access, that Ellie found the devastating confirmation. The acquisition contract for Logitech Innovations by Nexus Global was there, yellowed, with legal signatures dated 5 years prior. $2 million. Written promises of employee integration. Clauses about maintaining the original technical team. On the back, in small print, was the reality. All employment contracts terminated immediately upon closing the purchase. Complete transfer of intellectual property. No additional compensation beyond minimum severance pay. And there, on the list of dismissed employees, her name. Eleanor Stone, Senior Systems Engineer, terminated March 15, 2019. But what made her break down was another list appended to the contract. The Nexus Global Board responsible for the acquisition. And there, listed as financial director at the time, the full name, Richard V. Sterling. He had been the architect, the man who orchestrated the predatory purchase, who promised jobs and delivered dismissals, who stole years of work from people like Ellie and turned dreams into quick profit. And now, 5 years later, he was the CEO. And she, the invisible cleaner he had humiliated on day one. The pattern was complete. The irony was absolute. And Eleanor Stone felt, for the first time in years, something beyond sadness. She felt clean, focused, transformative rage. The disaster happened in the 3rd month, on a Friday afternoon. Ellie was on the 20th floor, cleaning an administrative hallway, when the door to the main IT room flew open. Andrew Porter stepped out, gesticulating toward 2 security guards. "It's serious," he was saying, holding a tablet. "We have the recording." She was accessing the servers. A cleaner. Invading critical systems. Ellie's stomach dropped. The security cameras. How had she not thought of that? Before she could react, Porter saw her. A cruel smile spread across his face. "Ah, look who it is. Miss Stone, isn't it? Please, come with me. Mr. Sterling is very interested in having a word with you." There was no choice. Ellie was escorted by the 2 guards, leaving her cleaning cart abandoned. Employees stopped to watch, whispering. The elevator that took her to the executive 20th floor never seemed so slow. When the doors opened, she was led to the main auditorium. And she realized, with growing horror, that this would not be a private conversation. The auditorium was filling up. Employees arrived from all floors, looking curious, some with expressions of pity, others of judgment. 200 people, maybe more. The same audience from the first day, when she had been introduced as just a cleaner. Sterling waited on the stage, next to a large screen projecting a black and white security recording. Ellie could see herself there, sitting at the server console, typing. The evidence was incontestable. "Bring her up here to the front," Sterling ordered, his voice amplified by the sound system. Ellie walked down the central aisle while the silence weighed heavily. When she reached the stage, she was positioned directly under the spotlights, exposed like a specimen on display. "Ladies and gentlemen," Sterling began, and Ellie noticed he was enjoying himself. "We have a serious security issue. This employee," he pointed at her as if she were an object, "was caught invading our most critical systems. Systems that control millions in transactions. Systems that our highly qualified and expensive team works to protect." He turned to face her directly. "What do you have to say? Why were you tampering with things that clearly exceed your capacity for comprehension?" Ellie opened her mouth, but before any sound came out, Andrew Porter interjected from the first row. "She was probably trying to steal information to sell. She has basic cleaning access profile. Used it for corporate espionage. No! Ellie finally found her voice. I wasn't stealing anything. I was just what? Sterling cut her off, taking a step forward. He was so close she could smell his expensive French cologne. Trying to play hacker? Impress someone? Someone like you would never be able to solve this problem. The words echoed in the auditorium. Ellie felt 200 pairs of eyes on her, judging, assessing, presuming incompetence based on the color of her skin, the uniform she wore, the social position she occupied. The most expensive specialists in the country couldn't solve the problem with our systems. Sterling continued, turning to the audience like a seasoned actor. We paid fortunes in consulting. We brought in the best IT minds. And you... He let out a laugh that other executives in the audience echoed. You think just because you know how to turn on a computer, you're going to save a company that experts couldn't save? It's pathetic. Tears of humiliation burned in Ellie's eyes, but she forced them not to fall. She wouldn't give him that satisfaction. Mr. Sterling, came Ms. Clarice's voice from the back of the auditorium. She was standing, formal, but her voice carried a firmness that cut through the collective laughter. Perhaps it would be prudent to hear what Miss Stone has to say before. Clarice, with all due respect, you lack the technical competence to weigh in. Sterling cut her off. And as for you, he turned back to Ellie, you are fired, effective immediately. Gather your things and, if you publicly dismiss her over unproven suspicion, Clarice interrupted, her voice now louder. The labor press will have a feast. A humble, non-white employee, dismissed with an unfounded accusation of espionage. Without proper investigation, you are too smart for that kind of PR exposure. Sterling paused. Ellie saw the calculation happen in real time on his face, weighing ego against public relations risk. Very well, he finally said, the venom distilled in every syllable. You will not be dismissed, but you are forbidden, under any circumstances, from approaching any technical area of this company. You will return to your cleaning duties under constant supervision. One step out of line and it won't just be dismissal. It will be a formal accusation. Do you understand? Yes, Ellie whispered, defeated. I didn't hear you. Yes, sir. Good. Now get off my stage. Ellie stumbled down, passing faces that quickly averted their gaze. When the auditorium doors closed behind her, cutting off the sound of the murmurs, she finally allowed a solitary tear to fall. But when she reached the empty locker room and sank onto the wooden bench, defeat wasn't what she felt. It was crystallized determination, because now it wasn't just about fixing a system. It was about justice. If this story is touching your heart, be sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and leave a like. And tell me in the comments. Justice, write this word if you believe Ellie deserves to win. That night, in the two-room walk-up she called home, Ellie didn't sleep. Jamie snored softly in the next room, oblivious to the silent storm devastating her mother. The old laptop glowed in her lap. The flash drives Clarice had smuggled were spread across the plastic table. And Eleanor Stone, a systems engineer with 22 years of experience that no diploma stored in a drawer could confirm, worked. If she could no longer access the company systems directly, she would have to rebuild everything at home. The flash drive backups contained enough information: error logs, database dumps, fragments of source code. With surgical patience, she assembled a virtual environment mirroring the Nexus global architecture. 3 in the morning, she found it. It was there, buried in layers of code like a malignant tumor, a timed self-destruct module. It wasn't an external virus. It was native code, written by someone with deep internal access, designed to randomly activate and corrupt specific transactions in the inventory system. Ellie recognized the coding style. Variables named in Portuguese, a subtle nod to the original language, sarcastic comments inside the functions. It was the signature of someone she knew, Ben Carter, the senior developer who had worked with her at Logitech. She remembered his bitterness when they were all fired. They'll regret it, he had said. They'll pay for this. Apparently, he had kept his promise. Before leaving, he had planted a digital time bomb. But there was more. Sifting through the acquisition contracts Clarice had provided, Ellie confirmed the financial details. Nexus Global bought Logitech for $2 million, promising to maintain jobs. Instead, they fired everyone, saving about $800,000 annually in salaries. The stolen technology was implemented without the original creators, without adequate documentation, without the necessary intimate knowledge. When Ben's time bomb began ticking, no one at Nexus Global had the capacity to understand what was happening, because they had discarded everyone who truly understood the system. The irony was perfect. They had stolen the golden goose and starved it to death. And now they were hemorrhaging $3.5 million a month. Ellie picked up the seafoam green notebook and began writing her solution. Not just temporary patches, but a complete reconstruction of the corrupted module. She knew exactly where the malicious code hid, how it activated, and, most importantly, how to neutralize it. But she wouldn't stop there. She would optimize the entire system, fixing 5 years of accumulated incompetence. Took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of bled-out nights while working as a cleaner by day, under constant supervision from security guards. 3 weeks with Clarice smuggling updated information. 3 weeks of Jamie asking if her mother was okay. "I am," Ellie lied. But she wasn't. She was obsessed, consumed, driven by something greater than exhaustion or reason. In the 4th month, the pressure at Nexus Global reached a boiling point. Ellie overheard increasingly desperate conversations while cleaning. The international investors had issued an ultimatum. 60 days or the company would be liquidated. Losses were now reaching $3.7 million monthly. Important clients were migrating to competitors. The specialized press was starting to ask questions. The IT team worked 18 hours a day. Ellie saw Andrew Porter and his subordinates leave at 2 in the morning, defeated with deep circles under their eyes. They had no idea what to look for because they didn't know the enemy was inside the very code they were trying to save. Sterling was unrecognizable. The arrogant executive gave way to a tense man, shouting on the phone, firing minor employees for insignificant errors, looking for scapegoats for a crisis he himself had planted 5 years ago. Ellie, invisible again in her uniform, observed everything with clinical eyes. The solution was ready on the laptop at home, complete, functional, tested in her virtual environment. But how to get it into the right hands? It was Clarice who suggested the plan. The board of directors is desperate. They would accept a solution from anywhere, even the devil. We need to get a technical report to them, not to Sterling. And how? Ellie questioned during one of their furtive encounters in the women's restroom. Clarice smiled, the smile of someone who knows all the crooked paths of corporate bureaucracy. "Leave it to me." A week later, during an emergency board meeting, a mysterious brown envelope appeared on the chairman's seat. Inside, a 60-page technical report detailing the origin of the problem in Nexus Global Systems, the complete solution, and a step-by-step implementation. There was no signature, just the title, Analysis and Solution for the Critical Inventory Problem, Logitech Legacy System. The reaction was immediate. The board summoned Sterling and the IT team. The report was projected onto the screen. External specialists were called in to validate it. Within 72 hours, the consensus was unanimous. This solution would work. It was brilliant, elegant, precise. Who sent this? The board chairman, a pragmatic German named Hans Meller, demanded to know. "We don't know," Sterling admitted, and Ellie, cleaning the hallway just outside with the door slightly ajar, saw the conflict on his face. Should he accept anonymous help or try to steal the credit? She didn't have to wait long for the answer. "My team will review and implement this solution," Sterling declared. "We'll need 2 weeks for adjustments, but we can save the company." "Then do it," Mueller ordered. "But I want real results. A live demonstration. No excuses." What Ellie hadn't foreseen was the sabotage. Andrew Porter, director of IT, realized that this anonymous solution exposed 5 years of his own incompetence. If it worked, it would make clear that the problem had always been solvable. and that he, with his $15,000 monthly salary and generous bonuses, had failed miserably. So, in a desperate act of self-preservation, he intentionally implemented the solution incompletely. He skipped critical steps. He subtly altered parameters. When the internal tests ran, the system didn't just fail. It crashed spectacularly, corrupting even more data. As I suspected, he presented to Sterling, holding tablets with error graphs. This anonymous solution is amateur, dangerous. It almost destroyed what was left of the system. Whoever sent it doesn't understand the real complexity of our environment. Then we're finished? Sterling muttered, defeat finally penetrating his armor of arrogance. Not necessarily, Porter continued. His plan B already prepared. If the board gives me 3 more months and a budget for international consulting, perhaps. But 3 months was a luxury that didn't exist. The liquidation deadline was set, 30 days. Clarice brought the news to Ellie 5 days before the final deadline. They sabotaged your solution, the assistant said, tears of frustration in her eyes. They were in the women's restroom on the 19th floor, at 7 in the morning, before the executives arrived. Porter implemented it wrong on purpose, and now they've convinced everyone the solution doesn't work. Ellie felt the physical weight of defeat crushing her shoulders. Then it's over. No. Clarice gripped her arm. Not yet. I convinced the board to demand a live demonstration before the final liquidation. It's Friday. You have 5 days. To do what? I don't have system access. I don't have credentials. I don't have a voice in this company, Clarice. I'm a cleaner they'll call crazy if I say I'm an engineer. Then we'll make them see. Clarice replied with a determination that was startling. Sterling humiliated you, stole your work, destroyed your life and that of 25 other Logitech people. And now he's either going to steal the credit for your solution if he can, or destroy the entire company if he can't. Don't you deserve justice? Ellie looked at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. 52 years old. Gray hair hidden under a scarf. A cleaner's uniform smelling of disinfectant. Calloused hands holding a cloth. But behind those tired eyes, something ignited. I deserve it, she whispered. Then Friday you will have your chance, Clarice promised. The 5 days that followed were simultaneously the longest and the shortest. Ellie worked in her walk-up like a woman possessed, refining every line of code, preparing every technical argument, anticipating every possible objection. Clarice used her position to manipulate the logistics of the fateful meeting, ensuring mandatory internal transmission for all employees, adding clauses to the procedure that would force total transparency. On Thursday night, the eve of the confrontation, Jamie finally asked, Mom, what is happening? Ellie sat next to her daughter on the worn sofa that took up half of their kitchen living room. Tomorrow, I'm going to do something risky. I could lose my job. I could be humiliated again. But you have to try, Jamie finished, taking her mother's calloused hand. I know you, Mom. You never gave up on me when Dad died. You never gave up when we lost everything. You won't give up now. I'm scared, Ellie admitted. I know. But you'll do it anyway, because you are you. That night, Ellie slept for only 3 hours. But for the first time in 5 years, it was 3 hours of sleep without nightmares. Friday dawned with the sky over Manhattan washed clean by rain. Ellie put on her uniform for the last time, feeling differently about it. It was no longer an armor of invisibility. It was a contrast, a statement, a weapon of irony. The meeting was scheduled for 2 p.m., the glass boardroom on the 20th floor, the one reserved for special occasions. Ellie spent the morning cleaning lower floors, but she could feel the electric tension running through the building. Employees whispered. Everyone knew this was the final day. Either Nexus Global saved itself or it died. At 1:30 p.m., Clarice met Ellie in an empty hallway. It's time. Everyone is gathered. Board of directors, foreign investors, the entire executive IT team. And, she smiled mysteriously, all employees watching via internal feed on screens on every floor. I personally ensured the cleaning crew is included. You planned this, Ellie realized. I planned for everyone to see when the truth emerges. Not just the powerful. Everyone. Because this isn't just about you. It's about us. The invisible. They took the elevator together. When the doors opened on the 20th floor, Ellie saw the packed boardroom through the glass corridor. 20 people sat at the main table. Porter was standing, connecting a laptop to the projector. Sterling was next to Mueller, the German board chairman, gesticulating anxiously. "Wait here," Clarice instructed. "I'll call you at the right moment." Ellie stood outside, watching through the glass wall like an invisible ghost. Her heart was beating so hard she feared the people inside could hear it. The presentation began. Porter, confident, started his exposition. "Gentlemen, after extensive analysis, we discovered that the anonymous solution sent to us was fundamentally flawed. But utilizing its basics, we developed an improved version that..." He clicked. Screens lit up with code. Graphs projected. He spoke about data architectures, referential integrity, atomic transactions, all the impressive technical language that meant nothing in terms of real solutions. And then he executed it. For 30 seconds, it seemed to work. The screens showed data synchronization, inventory, updating, transactions completing. The executives leaned forward, hope igniting in tired faces. Then, everything crashed. Red screens exploded on the projector. Error messages began to cascade. Porter's laptop started beeping alarms. The entire demonstration system, connected to the main servers, began to crumble. "What?" Mueller rose from his chair. "What is happening? It's only..." Porter typed frantically, sweat running down his forehead. "I need a moment. It must be an incompatibility issue." But it wasn't. It was sabotage completed. He had previously tampered with the solution intentionally, and now, trying to present an improved version, he had connected to the critical parts of the live system. And he was destroying everything on live feed. "Shut it down," Sterling yelled. "Shut it down now." Too late. On the monitors watching the live servers, red alerts began flashing across all divisions. Pending transactions started failing. Inventory began crumbling in real time. The panic was palpable. That's when Clarice knocked on the glass door. All eyes turned. She stood there, formal as always, but with a new authority in her posture. And by her side, a cleaner in a navy blue uniform. "Gentlemen investors," Clarice said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "There is someone here who can help. The real author of the solution." The silence was absolute. Eleanor Stone walked into the room. 20 pairs of eyes assessed her, some confused, others indignant, others merely shocked. Sterling found his voice first. "Are you insane, Clarice? A cleaner? Gentlemen, this woman was forbidden from approaching technical systems specifically for invading." "This woman," Clarice interrupted, pulling a folder of printed documents and distributing them on the table, "was senior engineer at Logitech Innovations, the company you bought and destroyed 5 years ago. She developed the original system that you corrupted, and that is now killing you." Mueller picked up one of the documents. Other investors did the same. They were copies of the acquisition contract with the list of dismissed employees. Ellie was there. Attached, her full resume with certifications, previous projects, old letters of recommendation. "This is ridiculous." Sterling tried to regain control. "Even if she worked at Logitech, it was 5 years ago. As a junior employee, probably. Now you come with this story that a cleaner will..." "She wasn't junior." Clarice cut in again, handing over another document. "She was senior engineer, co-responsible for the development of the core system. And you..." She looked directly at Sterling. "You fired her along with the entire team. You stole the technology and discarded the humans like garbage." Ellie felt her legs tremble, but she forced herself to stand firm. Mueller stood up, walked toward her, studying her with calculating eyes. "Can you actually fix this?" Ellie swallowed hard. All the preparations, all the scenarios rehearsed in her mind, evaporated. But then she looked at the projector showing the digital chaos, and something automatic took over. It was her code. Her architecture, her mutilated creation screaming for salvation. "I can," she said, and her voice, for the first time, didn't tremble. "Then do it." Mueller took a step back, pointing to the console. "Gentlemen, this is absurd," Porter protested. "She doesn't have credentials. She doesn't have." "Out of the way!" The German investor's voice thundered with absolute authority. Ellie walked to the laptop. Her fingers touched the keyboard, and it was like completing a circuit. She was home. The first commands were to contain the damage. She disconnected the sabotage demonstration from the main systems, isolating the hemorrhage. Her fingers flew, typing SQL commands, Python scripts, API calls, everything flowing from a muscle memory that 5 years hadn't erased. "What are you doing?" one of the investors asked, but Mueller silenced him. "Let her work." Ellie opened system logs, traced the corrupted transactions, identified the failure points. And while she worked, she began to explain, not in complicated jargon, but in terms everyone could understand. When Nexus Global bought Logitech, they integrated the system without complete documentation, without the people who knew every line of code. One of the original developers, resentful of the dismissal, left malicious code. "It's here." She pointed to a specific section in the displayed code. "It activates randomly, corrupting inventory transactions. It's called a logic bomb, a type of internal sabotage." "And you can remove it?" Mueller asked. "I am removing it now," Ellie replied, her fingers never stopping. "But that's not all. The system was poorly maintained for 5 years. Patches on top of patches. Incomplete refactors. I'm fixing everything. 20 minutes. 30. 40. The room was in absolute silence, watching a cleaner in a navy blue uniform perform live digital surgery. Sterling was pale. Porter was petrified. And then it happened. The red screens began to turn green, one by one, like Christmas lights turning on in sequence. Pending transactions completed. Inventory synchronized. Corrupted data was recovered. The system, for the first time in 5 years, functioned perfectly. The silence in the room was deafening. Ellie turned to face the investors. "I'm finished. The malicious code has been neutralized. The system is optimized. You will no longer hemorrhage. 3.5 million a month." Mueller picked up one of his own laptops, accessed the real-time financial dashboard. His eyes widened. "The pending transactions are finalizing. Thousands of them. The inbound value," he calculated quickly, 2.8 million in transactions that were frozen have now completed. Another investor checked his own access. Inventory is synchronized. For the first time in years, the digital numbers match the physical deposits. A third, customer complaints in the support system are dropping. Deliveries that weren't showing up are now being confirmed. Mueller turned his full attention to Ellie. "How many years of experience do you have?" Ellie lifted her chin. 22 years in systems engineering. I worked at Connect Digital, at Innovation US, at TechSolve. I helped develop management systems that run in 15 national companies today. Until I was discarded like garbage when my work was stolen. "Did you know who she was?" Mueller turned sharply to Sterling. The CEO tried to regain composure. I don't memorize every employee from every company we acquire. They are mergers of hundreds of 25 people. Ellie interrupted, her voice now firm, years of silence breaking. "There were 25 of us at Logitech. You promised us integration. You fired us in a week. You took our code, our work, our dreams. And then 3 months ago, when this same woman you discarded arrived here, you humiliated her. In front of 200 people. You said someone like me would never be able to solve the problem that you created by destroying what we built." The silence was sharp as a blade. Mueller slowly turned to Sterling. "You publicly humiliated the only person capable of saving your company." "I didn't know. How could I?" "You didn't know because you don't care." Mueller cut him off, his voice icy. "People like her, people you consider beneath you, are invisible to you. And that arrogance almost destroyed a 250 million company." He returned his attention to Ellie. How much do you earn as a cleaner? Minimum wage, sir. About 2,000 a month. Clarice, Mueller called the assistant who was watching everything from the doorway. Please draw up a contract for Director of Technology. Starting salary of 18,000 a month, 2%, profit share, and executive stock options. Effective immediately. Wait, Sterling exploded. You gentlemen can't just. Richard? Mueller turned with a calm that was more terrifying than any scream. You are terminated. Effective immediately. Security will escort you to collect your belongings. And I strongly suggest you don't fight this decision, or we will make public the criminally negligent conditions with which you handled the Logitech acquisition. 2 security guards, apparently already instructed by someone, Ellie suspected Clarice, materialized to escort Sterling. Before leaving, the former CEO looked at Ellie one last time. There was no arrogance left there, just the devastating realization of a man who finally understood the cost of his cruelty. The consequences unfolded quickly in the following days. Ellie was installed in an office on the 19th floor with glass windows, a city view, an ergonomic chair, and 3 state-of-the-art monitors. The first thing she did was hire 2 engineers from the old Logitech she tracked down. One was working as a rideshare driver, another as a store manager. Both cried when they received the phone call. Andrew Porter was fired after his deliberate sabotages were exposed. A complete audit revealed that he had hidden the extent of the problems for years, maintaining his job through manipulation and fear. 2 other IT managers were similarly removed for complicit incompetence. But what shocked Ellie was the additional discovery. An HR audit, ordered by Mueller, revealed 12 support staff employees with wasted technical qualifications. A night security guard had a degree in systems analysis. A catering assistant had a master's in administration but couldn't find a job in the field. A driver had been an accountant. Nexus Global implemented a talent review program, and Ellie was assigned to lead it. The case leaked to the specialized press. The cleaner who saved a $250 million company, headline Tech News US. Corporate arrogance nearly cost an entire company, exclaimed the Business Journal. The story became a case study in MBA programs on talent waste and unconscious bias. Richard Sterling tried to sue for defamation, but had no legal basis. His reputation was destroyed. No reputable company would hire him as CEO again. Last Ellie heard, he was trying to reinvent himself as a freelance consultant, charging a fraction of what he used to earn. But for Ellie, the most important transformation happened on a Tuesday night, 3 weeks after the confrontation. She returned to the walk-up in East Tremont as always, but this time with an envelope. Jamie, she called her daughter who was studying at the kitchen table. I need to show you something. She opened the envelope. It was the first paycheck for the new position. $18,000 minus taxes, but still more than Ellie had earned in years accumulated as a cleaner. Jamie looked, blinked, looked again. Mom, is this real? It's real, honey. They hugged, crying and not tears of sadness, but that complex combination of relief, validation, and hope that only those who have been very low can fully understand when they see the horizon again. But we aren't moving yet, Ellie said. We'll still live here for a while. We'll still take the subway. We'll still go to the same church. Because dignity doesn't come from where you work or how much you earn. It comes from who you are. Jamie smiled through her tears. You were always worthy, Mom. The world was just blind. 6 months passed since that first rainy Monday morning, when Eleanor Stone first crossed the mirrored gates of Nexus Global. Now, on a sunny Monday morning, she crossed the same gates again. But everything was different. She wore an elegant navy blue ensemble, not an oppressive executive suit, but something that respected her essence. Comfortable but professional shoes. Gray hair loose, not hidden. In her canvas backpack, instead of cleaning products, she carried a state-of-the-art laptop and tablets for meetings. Good morning, Director Stone, greeted the security guard at the entrance, the same one who had ignored her 6 months ago. Good morning, Mark, she replied. She made a point of knowing the names of all the support staff. "How is your daughter? Did she get into college?" "She did. Engineering at the State University Tech program. Thanks to the scholarship you implemented." Ellie smiled. The scholarship program was her insistence. Half of the bonus she received in the first quarter had been used to create a fund that helped the children of support staff attend college. She went up to the 19th floor. Her team of 10 engineers was already there, a mix of recovered Logitech talents and brilliant newly here youths. They worked no longer out of fear or pressure, but because they had leadership that respected them. "Good morning, team." Ellie greeted them. "How are the numbers this week?" Maria, the former rideshare driver, now a full engineer again, presented. "System running, 99.8%. 99.8% of the time. Transactions completing normally. Zero inventory hemorrhages." And, she smiled, monthly profit of 8.3 million, the highest in 3 years. Nexus Global had not only survived, it had tripled its value. Investors who had threatened to liquidate were now scrambling for more participation. And all because someone finally saw talent where others only saw a cleaner's uniform. Don't go yet. If this story moved you, imagine how many other stories like it are happening now that you deserve to know. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell to never miss a video. Leave your like if you believe in the power of justice and recognition. And in the comments, write, "Talent has no uniform." I want to know how many of you understand that all people deserve to be seen for who they truly are. On a Saturday afternoon, for months after her ascent, Ellie received an unexpected visit in her new apartment. Still modest, but with room for Jamie to have her own bedroom. It was Clarice, the executive assistant who was now human resources manager. "I brought news," she said, sitting on the new sofa that still smelled of the store. Richard Sterling, completely bankrupted. His consulting firm sank. He was trying to scam small businesses, promising solutions he couldn't deliver. Ellie received the information without joy, but also without pity. And one of the companies he tried to deceive sued him. He's paying a heavy fine. Lost his condo in Tribeca. The imported car, what little reputation he had left. "Clarice," Ellie said gently, "I don't rejoice in anyone's pain, not even his. I know. That's why you are who you are." Clarice took Ellie's hand. "But I wanted you to know, justice isn't just about punishment. It's about restored balance. You rose not by stepping on him, but by being who you always were. He fell not because of external revenge, but because of his own actions." Ellie nodded. She had peace with that. 1 year after that first day, Nexus Global organized a corporate event. A celebration of financial recovery, presentation of new products, employee recognition. Ellie stood on the main stage, not as a cleaner being humiliated, but as the director of technology being honored. The auditorium held 300 people, and when Mueller announced her presentation, everyone rose in a standing ovation. 1 year ago, Ellie began when the applause finally silenced. "I walked into this building for the first time, as a cleaner, invisible, discarded, and I was publicly humiliated by a man who believed a uniform defined value." She paused, letting those words hang in the air. "But the truth I learned wasn't just that I had value beyond what he saw. It was that everyone here does. To every employee who sweeps these floors, who serves coffee in these meetings, who provides security at these entrances. Each one carries stories, talents, dignities that deserve to be seen." She gestured to the audience. "That is why we implemented the talent review program. That is why we offer scholarships. That is why we changed hiring policies to seek competence where it truly is, not just where it appears to be. But I wanted to leave a message especially for those who, like me, have been invisible. Your worth is not defined by the job you have today. It is defined by who you are, the knowledge you carry, the resilience you have already proven. If you lost everything and rebuilt with cleaning or driving Uber or any honest job, you are warriors, not losers." Tears glistened in many eyes in the auditorium. And to those in power, look around you. Truly look. You might be wasting talents that would save your companies, simply because you presume incompetence based on appearance or position. The cost of arrogance is not just moral, it is financial, it is strategic, it is existential. This company almost died not because a solution was lacking, but because the solution was invisible, dressed in a cleaner's uniform. The ovation that followed was deafening. The final scenes of this story take place not at Nexus Global, but in the working-class neighborhoods surrounding the city. Ellie never forgot her origins. Every Saturday, she visited East Tremont and nearby communities, not with condescending charity, but with real programs. Free technology courses for residents, partnerships with public schools, full scholarships. She discovered, over those months, 17 more people like her, talents wasted in jobs below capacity because trauma, an unjust dismissal, or prejudice had pushed them into invisibility. She hired 8 of them for Nexus Global. For the others, she arranged positions at partner companies. Now there was an entire network of CEOs who knew Ellie's story and were more willing to look at improbable talents. One of these people was Frank, a 45-year-old man who worked as a delivery driver but had been a civil engineer. A bridge he designed was still standing, but his firm went bankrupt in 2015 and he never managed to return to the profession. When Ellie hired him as an infrastructure consultant, Frank cried, "I thought my life ended at 38. Today, at 45, I'm starting over." "Not starting over," Ellie corrected, continuing, "You never stopped being an engineer. You were just doing something else necessary while waiting for the opportunity." The lesson that emerged did not need to be preached because it lived in every action that unfolded. Talent does not wear a specific uniform. Competence does not have a determined color. Human worth is not defined by current job title or external appearance. The only thing that truly determines a person's value is the willingness to look with truly open eyes. Richard Sterling looked and saw only a cleaner. Nexus Global paid $10 million in losses for that blindness before someone saw an engineer. But the story doesn't end in individual victory. It ends in systemic transformation, because Ellie didn't just save a company, she saved a model. Today, 3 years after that Earth Day, Nexus Global is a national benchmark in diverse talent management. Other companies copy its programs. Universities study its case. And Eleanor Stone, at 55, sitting in her office overlooking Manhattan, looking at the mirrored gates through which she entered as a cleaner and now circulates as a director, knows a fundamental truth. She didn't change. The world just finally had to learn to see. And you, listening to this story now, how many times have you judged someone by appearance? How many times have you failed to see talent because you presumed incompetence based on uniform, accent, or origin? How many Ellies have you met in life and failed to recognize? This story is real in its essence, even if the names are fiction. Because every day, thousands of brilliant people are wasted, ignored, humiliated, not for lack of capacity, but for excessive prejudice. So subscribe to this channel if you believe these stories need to be told. Hit the bell to not miss any story of justice and redemption. Leave your like if the story touched your heart. Share with someone who needs to understand that dignity has no social class. And in the comments, write, "I see people, not uniforms." I want our community to be a place of true recognition. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing that a fairer world is possible when we stop presuming and start seeing. Important disclaimer. This story is a dramatic narrative created for the purposes of entertainment and reflection on social themes such as talent recognition, inequality, and human dignity. Any resemblance to real people, companies, or situations is purely coincidental. The goal of this content is to inspire reflection on structural prejudices and the importance of valuing all people regardless of their professional function, not to defame or attack specific individuals or organizations. The situations presented are fictional and should not be interpreted as representations of real cases. See you in the next story. And remember, the next invisible talent you encounter might be exactly the one who will save everything you built. Until next time,